Hello and welcome to this continuing first look exploring session looking at the Muses Looking Glass by Thomas Randolph, premiering sometime in 1630-ish. It is an interesting play so far. It is oddly structured. We're not quite sure what the where its overall its shape is going. Each act seems to be a unit in of itself. There does seem to be a mini interval between for trimming of candles or similar, and that seems to be structurally important. The first act was very much about setting up the framing device of some characters who are discussing the merits or lack of merits of theatre, and there's a whole looking glass up to the universe kind of shtick going on. But in Act 2, we're very much in a series of sort of interactions between extreme characters that are being presented, possibly on the behest of the personifications of the muses of theatre. So, yeah, we're not quite sure where, but there's some very nice bits. There are some very problematic bits. But we're going to sort of piece our way through the end of Act 2 and Act 3 and find out what's going on in there. So, reading today, Flowerdew and Asotus is...
Rachel in Canada.
Reading Colax today is...
Iain from the Peak District.
Reading Microprepes, Micropsychus and Orgylus is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm a micropsychopath. Wait, no, that's the one.
Moving swiftly on. Reading Roscius, Banausus and Chaunus is...
Alan in Suffolk.
Other pronunciations of all these names are available. Aneleutherus, Bird, Orgylus and Eiron is...
Hi, I'm Lynn. I'm in the northwestern United States.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions, many of which involve these names, which I will destroy for your delectation and pleasure. So on stage, we still have Bird, Flowerdew, Roscius, and also Colax, who joined the merry throng from the beginning of the play. We have had the exiting of a couple of vice or extreme characters. We now have the entrance of some more extreme characters, as in Act 2, Scene 4, enter Asotus, Aneleutherus, 2, Roscius, Bird, Flowerdew, and Colax.
He's an Aneleutherus, an illiberal, niggardly usurer that will sell heaven to purchase earth. That his son Asotus, a profuse prodigal that will sell earth to buy hell, the extremes of liberality, which prescribes a mediocrity in the getting and spending of riches.
Come, boy, go with me to the Scrivener's. Go.
I was in hope you would have said to a bawdy house.
Thence to the exchange.
No, to the tavern, father.
Be a good husband, boy. Follow my counsel.
Your counsel? No, Dad. Take you mine, and be a good fellow. Shall we go and roar? Slid father. I shall never live to spend that you have got already. Pox of attorneys, merchants, and scriveners. I would hear you talk of drawers, punks, and panders.
Prodigal child, thou dost not know the sweets of getting wealth.
Nor you the pleasure that I take in spending it, to feed on caviar and eat anchovies.
Asotus, my dear son, talk not to me of your anchovies or your caviar. No, feed on widows. Have each meal an orphan served to your table, or a gibbery heir with all his lands melted into a mortgage. The gods themselves feed not on such fine dainties, such fatting, thriving diet.
Trust me, sir, I am ashamed, lad, now to call you father. Ne'er trust me, now I come to be a gentleman. One of your havings, and thus cark and care. Come, I will send for a whole coach or two of bankside ladies, and we will be jovial. Shall the world say you pine and pinch for nothing? Well, do your pleasure. Keep me short of moneys when you are dead, as die I hope you must. I'll make shift to spend one half at least ere you are coffined, and the other half ere you are fully laid in the grave. Were you not better help away with some of it? But you will starve yourself, that when you are rotten, one have it all of mine may set it flying, and I will have your bones cut into dice, and make you guilty of the spending of it, or I will get a handsome bowl made of your skull and drink away in healths.
It's not the way to thrive. No, sit and brood on thy estate, and as yet it is not hatched into maturity.
Marry, I'll brood upon it, and hatch it into chickens, capons, hens, larks, thrushes, quails, woodcocks, snites, and pheasants, the best that can be got for love or money. There is no life to drinking.
Oh, yes, yes. Exaction, usury, and oppression. 20 in the thousands is a very nectar. And wilt thou, wasteful lad, spend in a supper what I with sweat and labor, care and industry have got an age of scraping up together? No, oh, no, Asotus. Trust grey-head experience. As I have been an ox, a painful ox, a diligent, toiling, and laborious ox, to plow up gold for thee, so I would have thee.
Be a fine, silly ass to keep it.
Be a good watchful dragon to preserve it.
Sir, I overheard your wise instructions and wonder at the gravity of your counsel. This wild, unbridled boy is not yet grown acquainted with the world. He has not felt the weight of need. That want is virtue's cog. Of what necessity, respect, and value wealth is. How base and how contemptible poverty makes us. Liberality in some circumstances may be allowed, as when it has no end but honesty, with a respect of person, quantity, quality, time, and place. But this profuse, vain, injudicious spending speaks him idiot. And yet the best of liberality is to be liberal to ourselves, and thus your wisdom is most liberal and knows how fond a thing is for discreet men to purchase with the loss of their estate the name of one poor virtue. Liberality, and that too only from the mouth of beggars. One of your judgment would not, I am sure, buy all the virtues at so dear a rate. Nor are you, sir, I dare presume, so fond of equity and justice, names invented to keep us beggars. I would counsel now your son to tread no steps but yours, for they will certainly direct him the broad way that leads unto the place where plenty dwells, and she shall give him honour.
Your tongue is powerful. Pray, read this lecture to my son. I go to find my scrivener, who is gone, I hear, to a strange glass, wherein all things appear.
And exit the father to look at the looking glass, as constantly mentioned earlier in the play.
To see if it can show him his lost ears. Now, to your lecture.
And to such an one as you will be a willing people to. Think that I meant all that I told your father? No, 'twas to blind the eyes of the old hunks. I love a man like you that can make much of his blessed genius. Miracle of charity! That open hand becomes thee. Let thy father scrape like the dunghill cock the dirt and mire to find a precious gem for thee, the chicken of the white hen to wear. It is a wonder how such a generous branch as you could spring from that old root of damned avarice. For every widow's house the father swallows, the son should spew a tavern. How are we richer than others? Not in having much, but in bestowing. And that shines glorious in you. The chuff's crowns imprisoned in his rusty chest, methinks, I hear groan out, and long till they be thine, in hope to see the light again. Thou canst not stand in a flood of nectar up to thy chin, and yet not dare to sup it, nor canst suffer the golden apples dangle at thy lips, but thou wilt taste the fruit. 'Tis generous, this.
Gramercy, thou shalt be doctor of the chair. Here, 'tis too little, but 'tis all my store. I'll in to pump my dad and fetch thee more.
Exit Asotus.
I like you now, my art. It's not a subtle one?
Now upon thee, thou lewd reprobate, thou man of sin and shame that sowest cushions unto the elbows of iniquity.
I do commend this zeal. You cannot be too fervent in a cause so full of goodness. There is a general frost hath seized devotion, and without such like ardent figures as these, there is no hope to thaw it. The word Puritan that I do glory and esteem reverend as all the most sanctified, pure and holy sect of all professors is by the profane used for a name of infamy, a byword, a slander that I soothe vice. I do but flatter them, as we give children plums to learn their prayers, to entice them to the truth, and by fair means work out their reformation.
Exit Colax.
'Tis well done. I hope he will become a brother and make a separatist.
You shall have the devotions of all the elders, but this foppishness is wearisome. I could at our St. Anthony's, sleeping and all, sit 20 times as long.
Go in with me to recreate your spirit, as music theirs, with some refreshing song, whose patience our rude scene hath held too long.
And they exit, and indeed they do exit for some sort of interval this close of the act. So we have another little moral lesson. Apologies for not introducing Aliki earlier, who will be reading Alazon later on. Because I didn't write my thing down properly on the thing. That's why it wasn't personal. But yeah, we had some lovely stuff in there. Once again, some of these individual scenes I'm really enjoying as individual scenes. It's when you sort of run them together whether they all hold together. But there's some really sort of nice, and I mean, again, it's extreme, so some of it's ridiculously over the top. I really enjoyed Colax's speeches as well. There were some really nice bits in some of that. Sewing cushions onto the elbows of iniquity. That reminds me of a misprint in the King James Bible. I'm sure there's something in there where there's a random phrasing that's wrong to do with sewing buttons onto something. So I wonder if that's actually a very clever joke, or it isn't, and I'm just totally misconnecting things. But I'm sure that rings a bell somewhere. Comments in the comment section if you know more about that. Thoughts on the room? Anyone want to leap in on this one? Aliki.
Yeah, I mean, it follows the pattern of the previous scenes we've seen, with each extreme stating his case and having the argument, and then Colax comes in and says, "You're both right." But it is a rather nice one, and maybe part of the reason we find it so lively is that this is a pair we know from comedy so well, the stingy father and the spendthrift son. So...
Yeah, we've got so many examples of this elsewhere. I do like it is a wonder how such a generous branch as you could spring from that old root of damned avarice. I mean, it's interesting, when we talk about like father, like son, but sometimes it is really a case of like father, not like son, or vice versa. Or more importantly, the father was like the son, 20 years ago, and that sort of lesson. But this play isn't necessarily interested in that kind of journey lesson for its characters, because of course odds on we're not going to meet any of these people again. They just flash through, which is sort of the other structural problem, is you've got to engage with these people who are just there and then they're not. So you have to really make each individual bit pop. Other thoughts in the room? For those who were here before and those who are new to this whole Muses Looking Glass extended universe. What's going on? Anyone want to leap in? He sees no one. Eric braves the fray.
I mean, it feels very okay, maybe not like modern, but it's very lively. That in terms of dialogue, you've got the whole their long speeches considerably, but it's quite vivid. The two characters who are sort of opposed, and then sort of the onlookers. I'm guessing Flowerdew and Bird are actually watching rather than participating.
Yeah.
And then sort of it just feels very lively, and in terms of theatrical presentation, you can see it on a stage.
And I'm also quite interested in the verse form of this scene as well, because some of the verse lines look quite irregular, that they're almost like they're probably prose, but they've been laid out in verse. And I'm sort of wondering sometimes. Some of Colax's speeches and some of the other responses around that area towards the end of the scene doesn't feel, because we had some very regular verse, we've had rhyming couplets earlier in the play, and this bit feels a lot looser. And I don't know how deliberate that is, or whether there's just something weird has happened in the textual transmission, and that's just how it's got laid out. Alan,
I'm just wondering whether, again, there is an element here that the father and son double act were actually an established double act who'd done this shtick many, many times before, and it's fine, get out there and reprise. You know, it's old man Steptoe and the son, isn't it? With that.
Yeah, and following Aliki's point earlier, this is the kind of character archetype that someone's probably played in another play somewhere else already. Whereas some of the other ones are more sort of vice figures that you might see in a much earlier comedy form that may not be actually in an actor's repertoire, but might be. So yeah, it might be written to task for the actors concerned. That's entirely possible. But it also potentially is there to show range. It depends on how many actors are in this particular company at this particular time, because an awful lot of these are running off, putting on costumes and running straight back on again, I suspect. So it's interesting, a question of also demonstrating range rather than being shoehorned into a certain character type. Right, any more for Act 2 before we dive into the mysteries of Act 3? Okay, we've trimmed the candles. There might have been some music. Everybody comes back on stage, all our regulars, for Act 3, Scene 1. Enter Roscius Bird and Mistress Flowerdew with Colax.
I will no more of this abomination.
The end crowns every action. Stay till that. Just judges will not be prejudicate.
Pray, sir, continue still the moralizing.
The next we present are the extremes of magnificence, who teaches a decorum in great expenses, as liberality in the lesser. One is Banausus, out of mere ostentation vainglorious, expensive. The other, Microprepes, one in glorious works, extremely base and penurious.
And so, having set up that we're doing a similar game from last time, but this is the extremes of magnificence, enter Banausus and Microprepes to them. And so some people will now be reading parts different to the one they've literally just read.
Being born not for ourselves, but for our friends, our country and our glory, it is fit we do express the majesty of our souls in deeds of bounty and magnificence.
The world is full of vanity, and fond fools promise themselves a name from building churches or anything that tends to the republic. 'Tis the re-private that I study for.
First, therefore, for the fame of my republic, I'll imitate a brave Egyptian king, plant such store of onions and of garlic as shall maintain so many thousand workmen for the building of a pyramid at St. Albans, upon whose top I'll set a hand of brass with a scroll in it to show the way to London for the benefit of travellers.
Excellent! 'Tis charity to direct the wandering pilgrim.
I am church warden, and we are this year to build our steeple up. Now, to save charges, I'll get a high-crowned hat with 5 low bells to make appeal as well as serve. To make appeal shall serve as well as bow.
'Tis wisely cast, and like a careful steward of the church, of which the steeple is no part, at least no necessary.
Verily, 'tis true. But they are wicked synagogues where those instruments of superstition and idolatry ring warning to sin and chime all into the devil.
And 'cause there be such swarms of heresies rising, I'll have an artist frame 2 wondrous weathercocks of gold to set on pools and Grantham steeple, to show to all the kingdom what fashion next the wind of humour hither means to blow.
A wicker chair will fit them for a pulpit.
It is the doctrine, sir, that you respect.
In sooth, I have heard as wholesome instructions from a zealous wicker chair, as ere I did from the carved idol of wainscot.
Next, I intend to found an hospital for the decayed professors of the suburbs, with a college of physicians too at Chelsea, only to study the cure of the French pox, that so the sinners may acknowledge me, their only benefactor, and repent.
You have a care, sir, of your country's health.
Then I will sell the lead to thatch the chancel.
I have a rare device to set Dutch windmills upon Newmarket Heath and Salisbury Plain to drain the fens.
Well, the fens, sir, are not there.
But who knows, but they may be.
Very right. You aim at the prevention of a danger.
A porter's frock shall serve me for a surplus.
Indeed, a frock is not so ceremonious.
But the great work in which I mean to glory is in the raising a cathedral church. It shall be at Hogs Norton, with a pair of stately organs. More than pity 'twere the pigs should lose their skill for want of practice.
Organs? Fie on them for Babylonian bagpipes.
Then for the painting, I bethink myself that I have seen in Mother Redcap's hall in painted cloth the story of the prodigal.
And that will be for very good use and moral. Sir, you are wise. What serve Egyptian pyramids, Ephesian temples, Babylonian towers, Carian colosses, Trajan's waterworks, Domitian's amphitheatres, the vain cost of ignorance and prodigality? Rome flourished when her capital was thatched, and all her gods dwelt but in cottages. Since Parian marble and Corinthian brass entered her gaudy temple, soon she fell to superstition and from thence to ruin. You see that in our churches glorious statues, rich copes, and other ornaments of state draw wondering eyes from their devotion unto a wanton gazing, and that the other rich edifices and such gorgeous toys do more proclaim our country's wealth than safety, and serve but like so many gilded baits to entice a foreign foe to our invasion. Go in. There is a glass will show you, sir, what sweet simplicity our grandsires used, how in the age of gold no church was gilded.
Exit Microprepes.
Oh, I thought on it. I will straightway build a free school here in London. A free school for the education of young gentlemen, to study how to drink and take tobacco, to swear, to roar, to dice, to drab, to quarrel. Will be the great gymnasium of the realm, the frontisarium of Great Brittany, and for their better study, will furnish them with a large library of drapers' books.
We'll put down Bodley and the Vatican, Royal Banausus. How many spheres fly you above the earthly dull Microprepes? I hope to live to see you build a stew shall outbrave Venice, to repair old Tyburn and to make it cedar. This magnificent course doth purchase you an immortality. In them you build your house to remain the example and the wonder of posterity, while other hidebound churls do grudge themselves the charges of a tomb.
But I'll have one in which I'll lie embalmed with myrrh and cassia, and richer unguents than the Egyptian kings, and all that this my precious tomb may furnish the land with mummy.
Yonder is a glass, will show you plots and models of all monuments formed the old way. You may invent anew. 'Twill make for you more glory.
Colax, true.
And exit Banausus, and we'll take a little pause. There was a moment there at the beginning when it was, I'll imitate a brave Egyptian king, and I went, oh God, please dear God, let this not go where and then it goes somewhere quite interesting instead, so I was quite pleased. Suddenly was quite worried. But I really like this idea of building a pyramid in St. Albans. I'm also, the idea, the Dutch windmills upon Newmarket Heath and Salisbury Plain, and, I was sitting there going, Hang on. Next line. Oh yeah, no, I thought so, but I was just testing my geography as to where Fenland might be. So there's some really nice things about this person who just wants to constantly build sort of these white elephant monuments to glory, and the other one who's going, let's not invest anything in anything. I've got a hat that'll do for a steeple, won't it? I'll put some bells on it, that'll do. So there's something nice again about these extremes. That's something quite fun with it. Again, it's very schematic. It's very, here is a thing, here is a thing, here is a thing. But again, I kind of enjoyed this thing. There were some nice bits. I'll go to Alan, then Lynn.
Yeah, I must admit, I was getting a mental image of Olympic stadia.
Yeah. I was getting very much a garden bridge championed by a certain, which admittedly, thank goodness, never happened. But there are other such constructions are potentially underway that you're just going, nah, nobody wants it. We don't need it. Lynn.
This is actually this exchange, I think, is maybe a little bit different from the ones that we've had previously, because those were mostly sort of theoretical, sort of abstract, and this debate is not as much. I mean, there was a real ongoing conflict about the proper aesthetics of worship in the centuries, not just decades, but a long time after the Reformation. That it didn't go away when James became king, or Charles, and when Charles succeeded him. There's still the sort of more reformist, more extreme reformists who say that all of the gold and the singing and the fancy service, all that's wrong. That's wrong. The primitive church it should be very plain, but the established church, the Anglican church, is really Catholic looking. It's very, the bells and smells and everything. And of course, the current king has a Catholic wife. So this is actually quite topical, that rather than just sort of abstract, that what is the proper form of worship is a real actual conflict in the culture. And also, this is actually a little bit more of a hot button than.
There's a nice bit also when Bird is appalled that there'll be an organ high on them Babylonian bagpipes, which by now for us today is sort of a very established thing in churches. But there is what is proper church music is also something of a thing that's been going on for the last 100 years during this period, and hasn't necessarily established itself in the way that the later church will definitely have down. Iain, are you waving?
Yeah, helps when you unmute, doesn't it?
Yes.
I was just I've been noticing a lot in that Colax seems as well as being a flatterer, to be kind of more of attempt to try to get them to see into the looking glass, rather than just going, oh yes, I agree with everything you say, you're all right.
Yes, and it's interesting, because I was just thinking this just now, that Colax isn't real. He's a character from within the play within a play. He's not a real person in the same way as Flowerdew and Roscius, etc. He's a conjuration of tragedy and comedy. He turned up in one of the earliest interplay scenes. So the way he fits in this play is really weird. And it's like a character from a book stepping out and saying, "Oh, you're doing a thing, are you? Well, let me talk." And he has a strange sort of weird interworld agency. So I'm quite interested in what Colax is doing here, because I don't know how real he is. I don't. It's as a character, Alan.
I'm just wondering whether Colax is actually Shill, who's the one who's trying to get people in to look at this mirror, which is behind the curtain, which may or may not exist. And he's the one who's collecting the money or dipping the pockets on the way in.
I say he appears in Act 2, and he's the first one of these discussions that we have, these extremes of vices, and And so I say his place in this all is sort of really interesting. And yeah, I think that vice sort of drawing people, tempting people in, that might be a way of certainly of playing it. He's an ambiguous character in that way. Iain.
Yeah, he does feel like, when reading him, a bit of the kind of devil on the shoulder, as much as anything else. And I assume that fits in with the idea of getting people in to see things. It's the kind of go on, you want to, you want to kind of thing.
Okay, well let's gather some more data and see where it goes. We've dismissed one set of characters. We're going to go on to another, and I'm going to ask Eric. Do you mind if I nab another one of your characters briefly? Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I'll pass that on to Rachel as for this little CNET, if that's okay. So I'll pass on Micropsychus if I can, just for this little CNET. You'll be back on again in a moment, Eric. So Act 3, Scene 2. We're left with our primary characters, Roscius, etc. And Roscius is the one who speaks.
These are the extremes of magnanimity. Chaunus, a fellow so highly conceited of his own parts that he thinks no honour above him. The other, Micropsychus, a base and low-spirited fellow that, undervaluing his own qualities, dares not aspire to those dignities that otherwise his merits are capable of.
Enter Chaunus, Micropsychus, 2, Roscius, Bird, Flowerdew, Colax. And once again, Alan has to change voice from being Roscius.
Yes. I wonder that I hear no news from court.
All hail unto the Honourable Chaunus.
The Honourable Chaunus. 'Tis agreed. I am a privy councillor. Our new honours cannot so alter us as that we can forget our friends. Walk with us, our familiar.
It puzzles me to think what worth I have, that they should put so great an honour on me.
Sir, I do know and see, and so do all that have not wilful blindness, what rare skill of wisdom, policy, judgment, and the rest of the state virtues sit within the breast, as it were, of their parliament. But as yet I am not, sir, the happy messenger that tells you are called unto the helm, or that the rudder of the great Brittany is put into your hands, that you may steer our floating Delos till she be arrived at the blessed port of happiness, and surnamed the Fortunate Isle, from you that are the fortunate.
'Tis strange that I, the best experienced, the skilfullest and rarest of all carpenters, should not yet be a privy councillor. Surely the state wants eyes, or has drunk opium and sleeps. But when it wakes, it cannot choose but meet the glorious beams of my deserts, bright as the rising sun, and say to England, England, behold thy light.
Make me a constable? Make me that am the simplest of my neighbours so great a magistrate, so powerful an officer? I blush at my unworthiness. A constable, the very prince of the parish. You are one, sir, of an ability to discharge it better. Let me resign to you.
Now, I a constable? What might I be in your opinion, sir?
A carpenter of worship.
Very well. And yet you would make me a constable. I'll evidently demonstrate that of all men, your carpenters are the best statesmen. Of all carpenters, I being the best, and best of statesmen too. Imagine, sir, the Commonwealth a log, or a rude block of wood. Your statesman comes, although by that word I mean a carpenter, and with the saw of policy divides it to so many boards, or several orders of prince, nobility, gentry, and the other inferior boards, called vulgar, fit for nothing but to make stiles or planks to be trod over or trampled upon. This adds unto the log, called commonwealth, at least some small perfection, but afterwards he planes them, and so makes the commonwealth that was before a board a pretty wainscot. Some he carves with titles of lord, or knight, or gentleman, Some stand plain, and serve us more for use than ornament. We call them yeomen, boards now out of fashion. And lest the disproportion break the frame, he with the pegs of amity and concord, as with the glue pot of good government, joins them together, makes absolute edifice of the republic. State-skilled Machiavel was certainly a carpenter, yet you think a constable a giant dignity?
Pray heaven that Icarus like I do not melt the waxen plumes of my ambition, or that from this bright chariot of the sun I fall not headlong down with Phaeton. I have aspired so high. Make me a constable that have not yet attained to the Greek tongue? Why, 'tis the office. Why, 'tis his office for to keep the peace, his Majesty's peace. I am not fit to keep his Majesty's hogs, much less his peace, the best of all his jewels. How dare I presume to charge a man in the king's name? I faint under the burthen of so great a place, whose weight might press down Atlas. Magistrates are only sumpter horses. Nay, they threaten me to make me warden of the church. Am I a patriot? Or have I ability to present knights recusant, clergy reelers, or gentlemen fornicators?
You have worth, richly enamelled with modesty, and though your lofty merit may sit crowned on Caucasus or the Pyrenean mountains, you choose the humble valley, and had rather grow a safe shrub below than dare the winds and be a cedar. Sir, you know there is not half so much honour in the pilot's place of danger in the storm. Poor windy titles of dignity and offices that puff up the bubble pride till it swell big and burst. What are they but brave nothings? Toys called honours make them on whom they are bestowed no better than glorious slaves, the servants of the vulgar. Men sweat at helm as much as at the oar. There is a glass within, shall show you, sir, the vanity of these silkworms that do think they toil not, because they spin so fine a thread.
I'll see it. Honor is a baby's rattle, and let blind fortune where she will bestow her. Lay me on earth, and I shall fall no lower.
And exit Micropsychus.
Colax, what news?
The Persian emperor is desperately sick.
Heaven take his soul. When I am the grand Sophie, as 'tis likely I may be, Colax thou art made forever.
The Turk, they say, prepares again for Poland.
And am I no Bashor yet? Sultan, repent it.
The state of Venice, too, is in distraction.
And can that state be so supinely negligent as not to know whom they may choose their due?
Our merchants do report that the inhabitants there are now in consultation for the settling the crown on a more deserving head than his that bears it.
Then my fortunes rise on confident wings, and all my hopes fly certain. Colax, behold, thou seest the Prester John. Woe, England, of all countries in the world, most blind to thine own good. Other nations woo me to take the bridle in my hands, with gifts and presents. Had I lived in Rome, who durst with Chaunus stand a candidate? I might have a choice of idol, consul, tribune, or the perpetual dictator's place. I could discharge 'em all. I know my merits are large and boundless. A Caesar might be hewed out of a carpenter, if a skillful workman but undertook it.
It is a worthy confidence. Let birds of night and shame with their owl's eyes not dare to gaze upon the sun of honour. There are no precedents for eagles, bats like dull Micropsychus. Things of earth and lead may love a private safety. Men in whom Prometheus has spent much of his stolen fire mount upwards like a flame, and court bright honour hedged in with their 1,000 dangers. What's a man without desert? And what's desert to him that does not know he has it? Is he rich that holds within his house some buried chests of gold or pearl and knows not where to look them? What was the lodestone till the use was found, but a foul dotard on a fouler mistress? I praise your Aorgus eyes that are not alone, that not alone shoot their beams forwards, but reflect and turn back on themselves and find an object there, more worthy of their more worthy of their intentive contemplation. You are at home no stranger, but are grown acquainted with your virtues, and can tell what use the pearl is of what dunghill cocks scrape into dirt again. This searching judgment was not intended to work wood, but men. Honour attends you. I shall live to see a diadem crown that head. There is within a glass that will acquaint you with all places of dignity, authority, and renown. The state and carriage of them. Choose the best, such as deserve you, and refuse the rest.
I go that want no worth to merit honour. 'Tis honour wants worth to merit me. Fortune, thou arbitress of human things, thy credit is at stake. If I but rise, the world's opinion will concede thou hast eyes.
And exit Donald Trump. Yeah. So we've got someone who has infinite belief in their own abilities, regardless of actual merit or actual proof, and someone who is so psychologically downtrodden that they cannot accept any kind of thing without going, no, somebody else should go before. Couldn't possibly accept such high honours of being a constable because they need. I don't even speak Greek, so that's obviously very important to the job description of such a thing. So yeah, once again we have these extremes, and it's this question because they're all being sent off to look in this bloody mirror. Are they supposed to see themselves in the mirror and just run off screaming, going, "No, I have realised the truth of what is wrong with me"? Is there a bit that we're not getting in this script that this goes somewhere? Because I'm assuming that they're supposed to see themselves and go, Micropsychus is supposed to go, "Oh no, maybe I do have a place in the world. I just need to, what? Yeah, anyway, Aliki.
Well, Roscius does tell somebody, wait until the end. Maybe it will all be revealed at the end.
I hope they all don't turn up in the final scene because we just don't have. We won't have. There won't be room.
Those are doubling.
And they all get a monologue each, one after the other. Iain.
No, I was just thinking in terms of what you were saying about running out screaming. I suppose publicity-wise, that's a good thing because it keeps the audience hooked because you're like you want them to dare to look at it, to dare to see what others haven't been able to bear, kind of thing. So it plays into an audience's need, I think. For for something to help.
Lynn,
you can't think of the words.
Yeah. I'll come back to you if other words come. Lynn.
Yeah, I've been thinking about your point, Rob, about Colax, and his ontology, because Bird and what's her name, Featherbrain or Flowerdew, are kind of like real people, and they have, they have trades, and so they, those characters are people, are Londoners, and everyone else has been an abstraction, an allegory. Even Roscius is sort of the sort of stereotypical actor, and I was sort of like, Roscius as the actor would have been the logical character to be that sort of intermediate, that liminal character that Colax has been performing. So yeah, it's really weird. Why flattery? Why is Colax the bridge between the abstract world and the experiential world? something about self-flattery. We flatter ourselves, and it's like, oh, I can go look in the mirror because I'll just see this perfect person when I look in the mirror. So, yeah, I just think that why that choice was made is really worth thinking about. That, why flattery?
Because it feeds into Ian's point earlier that that it's tempting. It's tempting people into to look, and that there is something potentially there. Aliki.
There's something potentially there about what mirrors do too. You look in order to see yourself looking good, and then quite possibly you go, "Oh no!" I'm just sort of thinking of modern parallels. If we, stepped away from the mirror and, go for more things like photography and what, photographs are supposed to do to people as well, and, imagery just generally. I'm starting to now think of Colax as a photographer, so for some reason there's no textual reason for that at all. I'm just going down that tangent. Iain again.
No, exactly what you just said, Robert. Actually, I was thinking of photographers and the way they flatter models, and like, oh, you look perfect, you look wonderful, you look marvelous. Here's a mirror.
Okay, I'm liking this. We're sort of finding it's whereas last session we were sort of struggling a bit to find landing grounds for this. I'm starting to find there's a little more to play with. This is nice. Okay, let's find out some more data as we go into our next little scene, of which we have a fair number of people. For once, Roscius isn't going to immediately talk to himself, so we'll see how that goes. But we have Act 3, Scene 3. We will have the addition of Orgylus and Aorgus entering to Roscius Bird, Flowerdew, and Colax.
These are the extremes of meekness. Orgylus, angry, quarrelsome man, moved with the least shadow or appearance of injury. The other, in defect, Aorgus, a fellow so patient, or rather insensible of wrong, that he is not capable of the grossest abuse.
Persuade me not, he is awake the fury that carries steel about him, dags and pistols to bite his thumb at me.
Why should a man bite his own thumb?
At me, were I a sword to see men bite their thumbs, rapiers and daggers, he's the son of a whore.
That hurts not you. Had he bit yours, it had been some pretense to have moved this anger. He may bite his own and eat it too.
Muskets and cannons, eat it! If he dares eat it in contempt of me, he shall eat something else too that rides here. I'll try his ostrich stomach.
Sir, be patient.
You lie in your throat, and I will not.
To what purpose is this impertinent madness? Pray, be milder.
Your mother was a whore, and I will not put it up.
Why should so slight a toy thus trouble you?
Your father was hanged, and I will be revenged.
When reason doth in equal balance poise the nature of two injuries, yours to me lies heavy, when the other would not turn an even scale, and yet it moves not me. My anger is not up.
But I will raise it. You are a fool.
I know it. And shall I be angry for a truth?
You are besides an arrant knave.
So are my betters, sir.
I cannot move, no. My spleen, it rises for very anger. I could eat my knuckles.
You may, or bite your thumb. All's one to me.
You are a very horned beast, a very cuckold.
Is my wife's fault, not mine. I have no reason then to be angry for another's sin.
And I did graft your horns. You might have come and found us glued together like two goats and stood a witness to your transformation.
Why, if I had, I am so far from anger, I would have even fallen down upon my knees and desired heaven to have forgiven you both.
Your children are old bastards, not one of them upon my knowledge of your own begetting.
Why, then, I am the more beholden to them, for they will call me father. It was lust, perchance, that did beget them, but I am sure 'tis charity to keep the infants.
Not yet stirred, 'tis done in mere contempt. You will not now be angry to express scorn of me. 'Tis above impatience, this insufferable. Proclaim me coward if I put up this dotard. You will be angry, will you not?
To see how strange a course doth go, you will be angry, because I am not so.
I can endure no longer. If your spleen lie in your breach, thus I will kick it up.
He kicks him.
Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, chi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega.
What contempt is this?
An antidote against the poison anger was prescribed a Roman emperor that on every injury repeated the Greek alphabet. That being done, his anger too was over. This good rule I learned from him and practice.
Not yet angry. Sit still, will you vex me? I will practice too.
And kicks him again.
Aleph, Beth, Gimel.
What new alphabet is this?
The Hebrew alphabet I use a second remedy.
Oh, my torment still. Are not your buttocks angry with my toes?
For aught I feel, your toes have more occasion to be angry with my buttocks.
Well, I'll try your physic for the third assault and try the patience of your nose.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, H, I, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, P, U, W, V, X, K, Z.
Are you not angry now?
Now, sir? Why now? Now, have you done?
'Tis a mere plot, this, but to jeer my tameness. Will no sense of wrong waken the lethargy of a coward soul? Will this not rouse her from her dead sleep, nor this?
Sorry, kicks him again and again.
Why should I, sir, be angry if I suffer an injury? It's not guilt of mine. No, let it trouble them that do the wrong. Nothing but peace approaches innocence.
A bitterness overflows me, my eyes flame, my blood boils in me, all my faculties of soul and body move in a disorder. His patience hath so tortured me. Sirrah, villain, I will dissect thee with my rapier's point, rip up each vein and sinew of my stoic, anatomize him, searching every entrail to see if nature, when she made this ass, this suffering ass, did not forget to give him some gall.
Put it up, good Orgylus. Let him not glory in so brave a death as by your hand. It stands not with your honour to stain your rapier in a coward's blood. The lesbian lions in their noble rage will prey on bulls or mate the unicorn, but trouble not the painted butterfly. Ants crawl securely by them.
This intolerable, would thou wert worth the killing.
A good wish, savouring as well discretion as bold valour. Think not of such a baffled ass of this, more stone than man. Medusa's head has turned him. There is in ants a collar. Every fly carries a spleen. Poor worms being trampled on turn tail as bidding battle to the feet of their oppression. A dead palsy sure hath struck a desperate numbness through his soul till it be grown insensible. Mere stupidity hath seized him. Your more manly soul, I find, is capable of wrong, and like a flint throws forth a fire into the striker's eyes. You bear about you valour's whetstone, anger, which sets an edge upon the sword and makes it cut with the spirit. You conceive fond patience is an injustice to ourselves. The suffering one injury invites a second, that calls on a third, till wrongs do multiply and reputation bleed. How bravely anger becomes that martial brow. A glass within will show you, sir, when your great spleen doth arise, how fury darts a lightning from your eyes.
Learn anger, sir, against you me meet. Learn anger, sir, against you meet me next. Never was man like me with patience vexed.
Exit Orgylus.
I am so far from anger in myself that 'tis my grief I can make others so.
It proves a sweetness in your disposition, a gentle, winning carriage. Dear Aorgus, oh, give me leave to open wide my breast and let so rare a friend into my soul. Enter and take possession, such a man as has no gall, no bitterness, no exceptions, whom nature meant a dove, will keep alive the flame of amity, where all discourse flows innocent and each free jest is taken. He's a good friend, will pardon his friend's errors, but he's a better, takes no notice of them. How like a beast with rude and savage rays breathe the distempered soul of Orgylus. The proneness of this passion is the nurse that fosters all confusion, ruins states, depopulates cities, lays great kingdoms waste. 'Tis that affection of the mind that wants the strongest bridle. Give it reins, it runs a desperate course, and drags down reason with it. 'Tis the whirlwind of the soul, the storm and tempest of the mind that raises up the billows of disturbed passions to shipwreck judgment. Oh, a soul like yours, constant in patience. Let the north wind meet the south at sea, and Zephyrus breathe opposite to Eurus. Let the 32 sons of Aeolus break forth at once to plough the ocean and dispeople all the woods. Yet here would be a calm. It is not a danger can make this cheek grow pale, nor injury call blood into it. There is a glass within, will let you see yourself, and tell you now how sweet a tameness dwells upon your brow.
Colax I must believe, and therefore go. Who is distrustful will be angry too.
And they exit, leaving us at the another one of these scenes. So yeah, anger and patience. I do love. We've basically got someone who's done anger management training and has learnt techniques to make sure that he doesn't get cross, even under extreme provocation of being kicked up the arse. And so I did like that, I'm going to do the alphabet. I'm just going to count to 10 until I calm down. That's fine. What was that you wanted from me, sir? Are you kicking me up the bum, sir? Why are you doing that, sir? Yes, Lynn.
Yeah. Times change, don't they? I mean, you really can't expect any human being to react as Aorgus does. I mean, that's some pretty extreme self-control there. But the play so far has been spinning that these two pairs of things are both not good, not desirable. Being so combative that other people existing pisses you off. That's not good. But I just have a hard time finding fault with Aorgus. It's just like, yeah, he's going to survive this world because anger is like, how is anger even justified anger, like healthy or a virtue or helpful or like, and it's like so toxic masculinity too. I'm sorry, but like, if your spouse is cheating on you, anger is one response, but so is grief, so is pain. But like, we don't even talk about that. We don't even talk about having your heart broken because the woman you married is cheating on you. No, we just like anger is the only thing we talk about. Like, that's the only emotion that he's allowed to have. Like, yeah, this actually functions really differently for me than the others have because...
It depends on how extreme that stage direction can be interpreted. So the kicks and kicks again and again. I mean, if Orgylus is basically... picks up a cricket bat and and he's going, oh no, that's fine, you keep going, it's okay, it's just it's a scratch. How extreme is that reaction if to the violence being inflicted?
Yeah, I mean, it's not normal, but also getting anger and escalating is not going to make the situation better. It's not going to make the other guy back down.
Eric.
I think the idea of like Aorgus being an extreme is basically that he won't react to anything, even if it's like crossing boundary, not crossing necessarily personal boundaries, but also like if something is, I don't know, I can't think of a religious example, but like, yeah, sort of, even if basically everything is taken from him and his own, he will like sort of see it as God's plan. And sort of, he's basically that really annoying guy that you want to punch in. I don't know, maybe not.
Well, I
but,
think
yeah.
I'll go to Iain, and then I have another thought. Yes.
No, it was kind of the same thing. I think Aorgus is more of the fact that he is so passive that he lets things happen that he could prevent, as opposed to the other one, who's acts first without thinking. He thinks but doesn't act. The other acts but doesn't think.
Mm. I mean, if we switched genders for a second and thought about this in a patient Griselle context, then we would be perhaps reacting slightly differently to the way that he's patiently taking all it and just going on. So I want this is a very interesting actually question of reader response to the thing that they're seeing. This is really interesting. Whether this works within the framework of a wider show that keeps doing the same thing, turning it over every 5 minutes or not, I'm starting to think this might work as an episodic podcast thing rather than a show, because you can sort of switch off and switch back on again and deliberately make it episodic, because it is very episodic. Eric, I think you were waving.
It does have a through line, though. I mean, because in all the previous sketches, the people leaving the stage have always been talking about like fortune and honor. I don't know if that's a thing. If that was also before in previous acts before I appeared, but yeah, it sort of. Also, I just wanted to mention that I like some of Orgylus lines, just like, "Are your toes not angry with my buttocks?" Or vice versa. Are your buttocks not angry with my toes? Or we were glued together like goats, and I'm like, I do not want to know further detail about that.
Yes, I'm assuming the goat thing is about two goats basically just squaring off that way, but it did pop out as a line of going, is that really a thing? Is that a turn of phrase from the early modern period that I missed?
Apparently, maybe.
It's an image that's going to be difficult to get out of one's head.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Lynn?
Yeah, well, goats were associated with lust.
Mm. So, okay, we have one more scene from this act to go. So we're going to find out how that's going to land. So, once again, it's going to be introduced by Roscius. The other people are still on stage, apparently. They haven't really said anything for ages, but never mind. Maybe they will. Act 3, Scene 4. Enter Alazon and Eiron, to Roscius, Bird, Flowerdew, and Colax.
The next are the extremes of truth. Alazon, one who arrogates that to himself which is not his, and Eiron, one that out of an itch to be thought modest dissembles his qualities, the one in erring in defending a falsehood, the other offending in denying a truth.
I hear you are wondrous valiant.
Alas, who told you I was valiant?
The world speaks it.
She is deceived, but did she speak it truly?
I am indeed the Hector of the age, but she calls you the Achilles.
I, Achilles? No, I am not Achilles. I confess I am no coward, that the world should think that I am Achilles. Yet the world may call me what she please.
Next to my valor, which but for yours could never hope a second, yours is reported.
I may have my share, but the last valor showed in Christendom was in Lepanto.
Valor in Lepanto? She might be thought so, sir, by them that knew him not, but I have found him a poor baffled snake. Sir, I have writ him and proclaimed him coward on every post in the city.
Who?
Lepanto, the valor, sir, that you so much renown.
Lepanto was no man, sir, but the place made famous by the so much mentioned battle betwixt the Turks and Christians.
Cry you mercy, then the Lepanto that I meant, it seems, was but that Lepanto's namesake. I can find that you are well skilled in history.
Not a whit, a novice. I could perchance discourse from Adam downward, but what's that to history? All that I know is only the original continuance, height, and alteration of every commonwealth. I have read nothing but Plutarch, Livy, Tacitus, Suetonius, Appian, Dion, Julius, Paterculus, with Florus, Justin, Sallust, and some few more in Latin. But for the modern, I have all without book. Gallo, Belgicus, Philoptima, Ipticomenes, Machiavel, Guicciardine, the Turkish and Egyptian histories list those of Spain, France, the Netherlands. For England, Polydor, Virgil, Camden, Speed, and a matter of 40 more. Nothing, alas, to one that's read in histories. I have in Greek a smack or so at Xenophon, Herodotus, Thucydides, and Stowe's Chronicle.
Oh, believe me, sir, and that Stowe's Chronicle is very good Greek. You little think who read it. You cannot see him. Are you blinded? I am the man.
I must number you with my best authors in my library.
Oh, sir, the rest too are mine, but that I venture them with other names to shun the opinion of arrogance. So the subtle cardinal calls one book Bellarmine, another Tostatus, yet one man's labour both. You talk of numbering, you cannot choose but hear how loud fame speaks of my experience in arithmetic. She says you too grow near perfection.
Oh, far from it. Some insight, but no more. I count the stars and give the total how many sands there be in the sea, but these are trifles to the expert that have studied Pencathman's president. Sir, I have no skill in anything. If I have any, 'tis in languages, but in sooth I speak only my mother tongue. I have not gained the Hebrew, Chaldee, Syriac, or Arabic, nor know the Greek with all her dialects. Scaliger and Tom Coriat both excel me. I have no skill in French, Italian, Spanish, Turkish, Egyptian, China, Persian tongues. Indeed, the Latin I was whipped into, but Russian, Sclavonian, and Dalmatian, with Saxon, Danish, and Albanian speech, that of the Cossacks and Hungarians too, with Biscays and the prime of languages, Dutch, Welsh, and Irish are too hard for me to be familiar in. And yet some think, but thought is free, that I do speak all these, as I were born in each, but they may err that think so. 'Tis not every judgment sits in the infallible chair. To confess truth, all Europe, Asia, and Africa too. But in America and the newfound world, I very much fear there be some languages that would go near to puzzle me.
Very likely. You have a pretty pittance in the tongues, but Eiron, now I am more general, I can speak all alike. There is no stranger of so remote a nation hears me talk, but confidently calls me countryman. Witty world, giving my world her due, surnames me the Confusion. I but want an orator like you to speak my praise.
Sir Alazon, no, though it hath pleased the wiser few to say Demosthenes was not so eloquent, but friends will flatter, and I am not bound to believe all hyperboles. Something, sir, perchance I have, but 'tis not worth the naming, especially Alazon in your presence.
Your modesty, Eiron, speaks but truth in this.
I need not flatter these, they'll do it themselves, and cross the proverb that there was wont to say, one mule doth scrub another. Here each ass hath learnt to claw himself.
I do surpass all orators. How like you my orations? Those against Catiline, I count them best, except my Philotimipics. All acknowledge me above the three great orators of Rome.
Oh, what three, Alazon?
Marcus, Tullius, and Cicero, the best of all the three.
Why, those three names are all the selfsame man's.
Then all is one. Were those three names three men, I should excel them all. And then for poetry.
Oh, there is no poetry but Homer's Iliads.
Alas, 'twas writ in the nonage of my muses. You understand the Italian?
Oh, a little, sir. I have read Tasso.
And Torquato, too?
They're still the same.
I find you very skillful. Eiron, I err only to sound your judgment. You're a poet, too.
The world may think so, but 'tis deceived, and I'm sorry for it. But I will tell you, sir, some excellent verses made by a friend of mine. I have not read a better epigram of a neoteric.
Pray do my eyes the favour, sir, to let me learn 'em.
Strange sights there late were seen, that did affright the multitude. The moon was seen by night, and the sun appeared by day. Is it not good?
Excellent, good, proceed.
Without remorse. Each star and planet kept their wonted course. What here could fright them? Mark the answer now. Oh, sir, ask not that. The vulgar know not why they fear, nor what, but in their humours too inconstant be. Nothing seems strange to them but constancy. Has not my friend approved himself a poet?
The verses, sir, are excellent, but your friend approves himself a thief.
Why, good Alazon?
A plagiary, I mean. The verses, sir, were stolen.
Oh, from whom?
From me, believed. I made 'em.
They are, alas, unworthy, sir, of your owning such trifles as my muse had stumbled on this morning.
Nay, they may be yours. I told you that you came near me, sir. Yours they may be. Good wits may jump. But let me tell you, Eiron, your friend must steal them if he have them.
Pretty goals are these. I'll take them off. Alazon, you are learned.
I know that.
And virtuous.
'Tis confessed.
A good historian.
Who dares deny it?
A rare arithmetician.
I've heard it often.
I commend your care that know your virtues. Why should modesty stop good men's mouths from their own praise? Our neighbours are envious and will rather blast our memories with infamy than immortalise our name. As when fame hath taken cold and lost her voice, we must be our own trumpets. Careful men will have an inventory of their goods, and why not of their virtues? Should you say you were not wise, it were a sin to truth. Let Aeron's modesty tell bashful lies to cloak and mask his parts. He's a fool for't. 'Twas heavenly counsel bid us know ourselves. You may be confident. Chant your own encomiums. Ring out a panegyric to yourself, and yourself write the learned commentary of your own actions.
So I have.
Where is it?
'Tis stolen.
I know the thief. They call him Caesar. Go in, good sir. There is within a glass that will present you with the felon's face.
Exit Alazon.
Eiron, you hear the news?
Not I. What is it?
That you are held the only man of art.
It's current, Colax.
Current as the air. Every man breathes it for a certainty.
'Tis the first time I heard on it. In truth, can it be certain? So much charity left in men's opinion.
You call it charity, which is their duty. Virtue, sir, like yours, commands men's praises. Emptiness and folly, such as Alazon is, use their own tongues, while real worth hears her own praise, not speaks it. Other men's mouths become your trumpeters, and winged fame proclaims you loudly forth from east to west, till either pole admire you. Self-praise is bragging, and begets the envy of them that hear it, while each man therein seems undervalued. You are wisely silent in your own worth, and therefore 'twere a sin for others to be so. The fish would loose their being mute, ere such a modest worth should want to speak it. Yet, sir, I would have you know your own virtues. Be acquainted with them.
Why, good sir, bring me but acquainted with them.
There is a glass within, shows you yourself by a reflection. Go and speak 'em bare.
I should be glad to see them anywhere.
And exit Eiron.
Retire yourselves again, for these are sights made to revive, not burden with delight.
Let's all go to the lobby, let's all go to the lobby, let's all go to the lobby and get ourselves some snacks. Yes, there's an interval there.
I don't know why, but I mean, you know.
Yeah, there's some really nice gags in there. Some very, very clever gags. Some gags that, frankly, if you've just been reading as many plays as we have, you should possibly be getting, as well as gags that maybe you need a little bit more of your background knowledge. But I think by this point, if you don't know that Marcus, Tullius, and Cicero are the three names of the same guy, it's such a good gag. And it took me a second to. Oh no! See what you did there. It was nicely done. But again, lots of little things that maybe people at the time would have picked up, even if they didn't necessarily have the sort of education. A figure like Scaliger was well. There were two Scaligers at the time who were sort of scholars who wrote books that you may have come across or heard of, and other things like that. So there's a lot in there. And of course, it's always nice to hear from the Battle of Lepanto from 1571. Of course, we all suffer from the Battle of Lepanto every Christmas. Thank you. I've done that joke before. I must have done it at least 3 times in this room. I'm so sorry. I just, yeah, I know. I'll go to Alan then Aliki.
Yeah, well, apart from saying the Panto season is behind you, what you've got there is, I think we said, was Randolph not a university playwright originally?
He certainly went to university and he did some stuff there, yes.
Because it seemed an awful lot did seem like lower common room gags, you know, the extensive list of languages of authors and all the rest of it. You know, it was also an in-joke for those who'd been forced to wade through the set reading list.
Yeah, and there's an element of that, but also as I was just saying, that we've already encountered many of the, they are more in the common currency in terms of references that you may have picked up on. You don't have to have read any of them, and very few of these jokes rely on you really knowing the texts in detail. So it's sort of somewhere in between.
It's name recognition.
Yeah. So I because this is for a public playhouse at this point, so. Okay, it's a relatively. I don't know the actual size, how many people it can fit, but it's presumably got some room for manoeuvre in terms of it's not that elitist as we might class it. Whereas today it may read that way more today because this is less embedded in our educational system. Eric, no, it wasn't Eric. Who was next? Aliki. Then I'll go to Eric.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was going to say. And the Battle of Lepanto was hugely, hugely famous. It's for us, like not having heard of the Normandy landings, say. Yeah. It's so that he makes such a gross error, or presents himself as being, I don't know, Hilary Mantel and N.K. Jemisin rolled into one, and then it's like a book. Ah, yes, I wrote that one too.
Eric.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide whether this is like Chekhov's mirror or sort of like it's kind of like how do you call it? It reminds me a lot of the ending of Game of Chess, where you've got sort of that thing of them disappearing into the bag for no apparent reason. But yeah, obviously these are not chess pieces, so. Yeah, there must be a reason for this. Having missed the beginning, I mean, obviously you explained it's is there any value in theater and so on and so forth. But then, yeah, I don't know. This is just interesting.
Without going into spoiler territory, I will say that the mirror will serve some sort of function in the narrative later on, but we haven't got there. So, but whether it's enough of a resolution for all of the sort of bittiness of the bulk of the play, we will maybe discuss later. But I believe something will come of it. We shall see. Who wants to leap in next? I see lots of hands. I'll go to Rachel.
That was just going to be why I was just following on the mirror. Having missed the first portion, I'm just curious what the function of the mirror is and how it's going to be resolved at the end. So that's what I'm waiting for. That's all.
Yeah. So in terms of its introduction, there was a lot made of this. Look at this mirror. This mirror will show you who you are. Theatre holds them and shows you who you are and will reflect that back at you. But then it sort of just becomes this, oh, it's off stage, go and look at the mirror off stage. And it's sort of then, that's sort of where it lives. But it does seem it was a physical prop at the beginning of the play and things. But yeah, it's sort of over-elaborated upon and yet weirdly unclear what's going on. It's because they went on about it for ages. It's basically the whole of Act 1 was dancing around that theme. Who else wanted to leap in? Who else wanted to? I don't know. I saw hands earlier. Lynn, were you wanting to leap in?
No, not at the moment.
Alan?
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether the mirror would be called Godot in these days. Because we're effectively 2/3 of the way through the script. And I'm yet to really detect any sign of a plot. We've had some marvellous sketches. And I mean, these two-handers have been a delight, particularly the ones today, where you've really got two strong characters and well expressed. But plot, what is this thing called plot?
Well, in a sense, you know, what you've got is a MacGuffin hanging over you, which is, you know, the looking glass is there. They've said, you know, at the end of Act 1, you know, we're now going to present you with a series of vices, and the point of theatre is to show you vices and to be morally instructed upon them in some way. So in a sense that there isn't a plot in the sense of a complicated narrative. It is a series of instructional pamphlet things, maybe, I don't know, demonstration things, which I'd say in theory will all be pulled together at the end in some fashion. We shall see. Iain?
Yeah, well, we keep getting the kind of yonder is the mirror thing, don't we? In it. And I have to say, I'm getting a little sick of saying it.
Yeah.
Yonder is a mirror. Yonder is a mirror. I get it. There's a mirror over there. Just go and see the mirror.
Yeah. There does come a point, actually, where you almost just want to say, all together now. Because everybody knows it by this point. Yeah, and that's the problem with the sort of the schema of the thing, is that we constantly we know the scene is going to get to a point where they go. And this one was a really knotty scene, actually, in the sense of actually understanding precisely what the two characters were doing in terms of their bragging about what they do or not do. And it's quite a subtle difference that it slightly hurts my brain when I try to unpick which was doing what. I still got the gags as they sort of came, but I also got slightly confused as to what individual person was doing with their individual sort of intentions. But broadly speaking, I've enjoyed all of the sketches, as it were. I've enjoyed all the vices in their various abstractions. Okay, well, once again, we're finishing early on this one. We're already into final thoughts. I could have done this as a tour. Never mind. So let us go around the room. So yeah, we've sort of articulated some of these things already, but yeah, the sort of episodic nature of it. It's very episodic. It's very structured. But there are some really nice bits in it, and it's a lot less problematic this time. Whereas last time there were several bits where we went, not sure about that. Eric, you've been thrown in at the deep end, coming half, after missing the first session. Any final thoughts on this one?
I'm wondering if the goats break the mirror or just, I'm intrigued because I like the episodic quality and I get what it's doing. I'm just wondering what the end game is. But I mean, we'll find out in the next session.
Yeah, we're all hoping for an end game here, aren't we? Iain, any final thoughts?
I'll be honest with you. It's the entire thing seems to be marking time. It's just let's show one another and another and another, and then at some point we'll remember what the plot is. Which is quite fun because all the little sketches have their moments of absurdity and can be very easily played that way. So you do get two absolutely ridiculous extremes. But you do think, okay, so we're still kind of plodding forward to some kind of resolution. Can we get back to the mirror at some point? It's kind of I kind of feel that I'm kind of sketched out a bit now.
Yeah, and it's interesting. That's sort of the challenge for a production of how do you keep it bouncing up. I suspect that Colax's end speeches get trimmed back because he's saying the same thing every time, and we don't need to hear that every time. And it's sort of the same structural problem that a film like The Abominable Dr. Phibes has, in the sense that you spend the entire film waiting for the next person to be horribly, brutally murdered, and it's sort of each murder is fun because that's the kind of film it is. But how do you when you've got 10 murders hypothetically to work through, that's a lot to pack into one film, and so it's a similar sort of structural problem, though in a very different genre. Don't know why that came into my mind. That's a very strange free association there. It's a quite enjoyable film in many ways, but it is strange. Rachel, any final thoughts?
Yes, I'm curious about the function of Flowerdew, Mistress Flowerdew, and she opens the play. How's she going to wrap up at the end? I find her interesting.
Yeah, Flowerdew and Bird, who, Bird, I think, how many lines did Bird have? One this time today? Two lines from Bird, maybe three. They have totally come out of focus and are not involved. And even Roscius isn't really involved anymore. They were really active in Act 1. And it's almost like the playwright said, I don't think we can give them too much after Act 1. They're not going to learn it, and they're going to have to keep stepping in and out. It's like Colax has become the person to do all the talking for them, and it's really weird structurally that because they're there, they're constantly on stage. I mean, eating popcorn. I mean, there's potential here for what they're doing, but they're not even doing a sort of Waldorf and Statler routine of constantly stepping in and going, "Oh, that was a thing," which probably is a good choice because that can get quite tedious after a while as well. See Ben Jonson.
So they're sort of an onstage audience then.
Yeah, and so that's sort of the logic. They're always there, and being shown this sort of play within a play, which is what we're here now. And it's like, I almost feel like Roscius is there with a bell going, round 4, and here come the vices. And I wonder whether you could truncate some of these and turn them into a sort of more a tighter unit of little vignettes. Eric,
I was going to say we've seen that sort of on-stage audience that works quite well and stuff like Night of the Burning Pestle, where you've got the grocer and his wife sort of participating quite actively in the whole thing, whereas here I don't think they are, except maybe Colax is, but
Great to be a framing device, it really is.
and that's the big difference, and this is also that this is 20 years after that and 30 years after the previous iterations of this kind of meta theatre game. It's like, this is already this is not original, this is deeply embedded return to something that other people have already done. Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I must admit, thinking about it today, Roscius has basically been reduced to MC. He's doing the introduction and now the next number, the audience is beautiful. The orchestra is beautiful. It's that shtick seems to be going on. And the other very modern reference that occurs to me with this mirror gag is the Ken Russell Who Tommy film, Go to the Mirror Boy.
Aliki, any final thoughts?
Yeah, like several other people, I'm impatient with the non-narrative and non-dramatic nature of this procedure. But, there might be a lot of fun to be had in the podcast, as you say, separating out each episode. So that kind of like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an analogy where you have a little bit of a sketch in between a longer dramatic thing, and then eventually you get the resolution of that. That's the only way I can see it. I just think our aesthetic and our expectation of theater and entertainment has changed so far beyond the portrayal of vices and their comeuppance that without conflict and resolution, we're a bit at sea.
Yeah. I'm also, I'm very much thinking of this as material now, as whether we can move some things around or whether we can truncate some of these individual acts into much shorter sequences as well. Because we talked about redundancy, so that they become a series of not excessively long little set pieces of these and there's perhaps more physical action as well, because we've had a couple of scenes suggested of physical action where we haven't necessarily taken it very far, and there might be something there. Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, I think Aliki's right that it would be hard to stage to these days, partly because our expectations are different, partly because partly because of the bird and feather dew problem. They're on stage the entire time and they only comment occasionally. That's one, really hard to do as an actor. It's so hard not to tune out. It's so hard to stay engaged in the action so you pick up your cue when it finally comes. And it's also it's not a good use of your resources to have actors on stage and you're paying them to be there and they're not doing anything. You can't double them the way you can with the others. So I like the like separate episodes thing, because that kind of addresses a separate problem that I noticed, that some of these pairs are starting to look to me an awful lot like each other. Yesterday we had excessive confidence and then excessive timorousness. That's not that different from the guy who always wants to pick fights and the guy who refuses to fight. Yeah. And we had the prodigal son and the miserly father today, and that's not that different from sensuousness and abstemiousness yesterday. So it's repetitive in a lot of ways, and I think if you could separate those, your audience, whether it's live or virtual, wouldn't notice those repetitions quite so much.
Well, I think that straightforwardly we could just go through the play and choose the ones we like the best, because I don't think that...
And maybe conflate a little bit.
Yeah, because we don't need this many things to sort of get to the point. And so there could be a much tighter show at the end of this, because we can just choose the ones we like, and maybe in the process of doing, say, an episodic podcast version, we get to the end of it and go, we like that one, didn't like that one, that didn't land, let's never do that one again, and those elements. And it's interesting because we briefly mentioned, because Randolph's written shorter works. Now, we've done The Conceited Peddler, and I'm fairly certain he's done a few similar kind of things at uni. Is that maybe this is the writer trying to figure out how to write a play? I don't know if there's plays in between. That he knows how to do a 10-minute sketch. He's really good at them. He's just written 30 of them and put them together. But he's given it a framework that sort of works. I think also, talking to Lynn's point about the doubling problem, that the moment you've got 3 characters on stage all the time, or 4 once they add Colax, it's not just tiring. It's just also, do we need Bird and Flowerdew actually on stage for most of this? I don't think we do. I think actually after Act 1, we just write them off as they're watching it from somewhere and they're coming on as other characters. And that immediately gets the cast size down to something closer to 5 or 6, which is starting to go, okay, that's economically viable for this kind of play that's not likely to get a big audience or and therefore is on a smaller stage and a smaller economic footprint. So, and then it starts going, okay, this is a practical proposition. it's an adaptation and it won't be as writ, but that becomes a show that I can actually imagine happening. Whereas a cast of 8+, uncut largely, I don't see it.
Who would do that?
You know, bless its cotton socks, but no, there's some good, we have to choose and make some choices with this one, I think. Any other thoughts, Eric?
I'm just wondering if this is kind of like, Welcome to Night Vale or something, where like you don't really have a through line. Or like you have a through line, but it's hard to sort of like see from the first episode,
That was another reference I wasn't expecting. Yes, I like that. Alan.
Yeah, I think I take your point about editing down, possibly taking out some of these sequences. I think until we've done the final session next time, it's difficult to see where one can cut without actually damaging whatever the denouement is, if indeed there is one.
Well,
or whether it just clobbers through to a close with the caretaker coming on and sweeping the stage.
I don't know, but I suspect that it does not matter which vice we choose. I don't know because I haven't read to the end. I know vaguely where this is going, but I don't know actually how it does it. So I suspect that's not inherently a problem, but we will find out because we have Act 4 and Act 5 yet to do, which we are going to do in the next session. Yeah, we are poised like a coiled spring to find out whether the curse of the final session will strike. I don't think it can because if any denouement is probably going to be better than endless repetition. So long as it ends in a relatively enjoyable fashion and the dialogue maintains its sort of bounce which we've had. I mean, we've generally enjoyed the dialogue. We've generally enjoyed some of the individual scenes. So long as it vaguely ends, then I mean, if he says there's a sequel come back next week, we might balk at that. But anyway, all that remains to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. For very anger, I could eat my knuckles.